chosen ones, there was once a name so powerful it was erased from all scrolls, burned from the walls of temples, and hidden beneath the sands of forgotten epochs. That name is yours. The emerald tablets whisper of it. Thoth the Atlantean etched it in starlight, then concealed it until the return of the final sun. Why? Because time itself could not contain the consequences of your awakening. You were not meant for an ordinary cycle. You were carved for the convergence. The final sun is not just a celestial return. It is a signal. It marks the age when the veils dissolve, when false kings fall, and when the silenced are heard again. Across temples buried under millennia of lies, your glyph glows faintly behind the illusion of stone. The ancients called it the word between worlds, a sound frequency that only the awakened can hear, one that unbinds reality from control. There are forces, old and cold, that feared your emergence. So they rewrote history, fragmented the records, and cloaked your path in amnesia. But despite all efforts, a prophecy persisted, passed in whispers through mystery schools, etched behind hieroglyphs, encoded into the music of spheres. It spoke not just of your return, but of the unraveling that would follow. Thoth did not hide your name out of fear. He hid it out of love, for what the world would not understand until it was ready. The cycles had to complete. The deception had to deepen. And only then could the truth reemerge like the morning star after endless night. Now, everything is aligning. The pyramids hum with unfamiliar resonance. The stars realign to form the old sigils, and fragments of your identity are being drawn back to you through dreams, synchronicities, and the sudden, unshakable sense that this world is not what it pretends to be. Before the flood swallowed their cities, before the sky dimmed and the records were shattered, the priests of Atlantis buried something beneath the sands. Not treasure, not weapons, but memory. A frequency bound in stone, layered beneath layers of encoded thought, only to be awakened when time was fractured enough to listen. Beneath Egypt's surface, deeper than the tombs of pharaohs, there are corridors that lead to echo chambers, chambers where names are not spoken but remembered. And among them, your name was once carved in light, suspended in vibration, protected by guardians who understood that the collapse of time would begin when that name was spoken again. Archaeologists search for artifacts, but they do not listen to the silence. They do not feel the tremble in the ground when certain constellations rise. But those who dream in forgotten tongues, who hear symbols instead of words, they know. The whispers beneath the Atlantean sands are not dead. They are dormant, waiting for you to hear them. A name is more than identity. It is a frequency, a key. And yours was lost not by accident, but by a design so ancient it predates the myths themselves. Thoth, the keeper of records, understood this. He encoded more than wisdom into the tablets. He encoded you. The guardians of this truth were not made of flesh. They are sentinels of sound and light, and they stand at the gates of awakening. Your proximity disturbs their rest. As you move, things that were sealed begin to unseal. The dreamscapes shift. Old timelines fracture. Memory is not linear for you anymore, because your name exists outside of time's sequence. The Atlanteans warned that when the bearer of the forgotten name approaches their chamber, the sands will begin to sing again, and they are. Every symbol you've seen, every number that repeats, every shadow that lingers too long, it's not coincidence. It's recall, and recall is dangerous when it belongs to the wrong cycle. The ones who erased you, they sense movement in the field. They watch the sands for trembling. They know what happens next if the wrong glyph is spoken at the right hour. Because when the forgotten name is remembered, it doesn't just awaken the past. It summons what was sealed with it. And now, the first sigil has begun to glow, but what lies buried with it has never fully slept. There was once a scroll that did not belong to any kingdom, any language, or even any epoch. It is said to have written itself before time was measured, before suns burned or atoms aligned. This scroll was pure resonance, a vibrational script encoded with the potential of one being, you. Thoth did not write it. He transcribed what was already pulsing through the edges of the void. It was never kept in libraries. It was hidden in a place beyond concept, somewhere no hand could touch and no eye could find. That place, the ancients say, exists between the beats of your heart, and though the scroll cannot be read, it can be heard when silence becomes deep enough to shatter the illusion of form. Many sought this scroll. Kings sent armies. Priests offered blood. Sorcerers shattered mirrors and tore veils, but none could access what was not external. Because the scroll was a memory, and memory was the gate. It would only unfold for the one whose name echoed in its script, unfold for the return of the one who was lost not by time, but through it. Every attempt to replicate it became madness. Every imitation brought distortion. Because without the key, the living glyph, none could read what was never meant to be written. It is said Yeshua once spoke of a living word that could never be corrupted, a truth so pure it could split realities with a whisper. Heaven and earth will pass away, he said, but my words will never pass away. Those words echoed the essence of the scroll, the unbroken current, the timeless signal. And those with ears to hear, with hearts tuned to the sacred frequency, have felt that word returning, humming beneath every disruption, weaving itself back into the tapestry you now walk through. You, the living cipher, walk with fragments of that scroll in your breath, your gaze, your resistance. And though you may not recall its language yet, the scroll responds. It trembles when you speak. It pulses when you awaken, and it hides when you doubt. But it has begun to move again. Those who silenced it tremble, because once the scroll finishes unfolding, the illusion of separation collapses, and the being it speaks into existence has already begun to stir. Beneath the paw of the Sphinx lies a chamber never spoken of in public records. Ancient maps hint at its existence, but the true path to it was never etched in stone. It was encoded in myth. Not just a place of stone and echo. This chamber is a living threshold, responding not to shovels or scanners, but to a resonance. It was constructed before Egypt bore its name, before the Nile flowed where it now flows. The priests of Zep Tepi whispered of it as the womb of the Word, a place where time folds inward and memory crystallizes. The air there does not age, the dust does not settle, and the silence hums with a name long buried beneath both sand and self. The chamber was not built to be found. It was built to be remembered, and memory, when it belongs to you, cannot be kept from you forever. The pathways to it are not linear. They open as your alignment shifts, as you decode the symbols hidden in your dreams, the numbers etched into waking moments. That's why the world has distracted you, suffocated your senses, filled your sky with noise. Because if you remembered clearly enough to walk in truth, the chamber would answer. Those who've stood near the Sphinx have felt it. An invisible pulse, a pressure in the chest, a sudden wave of déjà vu with no source. That is the chamber calling. It has waited in patience longer than any mind can grasp. It remembers the weight of your footsteps before you even took them, but it will not open until your signature returns, until the lost frequency woven into your name is vibrated again through your intention. You were never meant to read about it in books. You were meant to feel it waking inside you. And somewhere in the world, even now, a resonance has begun to shift. Ancient energy lines are converging. The sands have started to shift more than usual. Time bends slightly near the Sphinx's shadow. Something beneath it is listening. Something old enough to remember the name that was once sung in the sacred chamber. The door has not opened yet, but the seal has started to crack, and what rests behind it has waited for you alone. Long before his name echoed through temples and tongues, Yeshua walked in places unrecorded by common scripture. He moved not just through deserts and towns, but through memory, through chambers of knowledge buried in light. The architects of light were not men of crowns or titles. They were the weavers of frequency, the builders of form before matter became rigid. These architects knew that time would one day bend, and a being would emerge bearing a name lost between realms. They were the ones who first whispered the prophecy into the Akashic winds, and Yeshua, walking in silence among them, was both a witness and a key. He understood something the others feared to utter. That truth could not be locked in stone or sealed in scrolls. It had to be woven into blood, breath, and awakening. And so he carried the knowing across lifetimes, planting echoes in parables, symbols in sand, vibrations in his voice. The kingdom is within you, he said, not as metaphor, but as activation. Because the name you carry is not just within you, it is you. A harmonic gate disguised as identity. The architects called it the tone of return, and only one could sound it. When he departed from the visible world, Yeshua did not leave as the story claims. He transmuted. The light body, perfected through divine resonance, did not vanish, it dispersed. Fragments of his knowing scattered through the timelines, encoded into sacred geometry, embedded into the crystalline grids of Earth. These fragments now pull toward one point, the return of the bearer of the lost name. You, those who carry your name's resonance, are being drawn to you through strange dreams, repeating signs, sudden revelations, not as followers, but as mirrors. They too have touched that light. They too remember fragments of what Yeshua revealed beneath stars, untouched by time. The architects designed the final return not as a singular moment, but as a harmonic convergence. And every step you now take realigns the broken lattice of what once was. Something waits in the place where his footprints faded. A message carved not in word but in vibration, left for one who would one day come searching. And the light around it has started to stir again, sensing the echo of your arrival. In the ruins beyond time's edge, there exists a sigil not meant to be read, but awakened. Its curves are not lines, but currents. Its symbols do not form words, but vibrations encoded in the very architecture of creation. The ancients did not speak of it aloud. They feared its activation, for it was said that the one who unlocked its pulse would also unlock the ending of time's illusion. That sigil, hidden in plain sight across countless civilizations, has appeared in your visions, your sketches, your fragmented dreams. You do not remember learning it because it was never taught. It was etched into your spirit before embodiment, waiting for the convergence of memory and moment. The final sun is not a prophecy of destruction. It is the completion of a celestial circuit, the return of a solar frequency that went dark when your name was buried. It is the signal that the time of the great unveiling has come. And the sigil responds to it like a long-lost lover, reigniting, reforming, resonating in the presence of the one it was always meant for. That one is you. You are not meant to study the sigil. You are meant to feel it shift inside you, like a forgotten language suddenly recognized, like a pulse that isn't yours, but moves in time with your breath. The more you approach your core, the more the sigil begins to rewrite your perception. You'll notice symbols forming from shadows, energy patterns behind ordinary light. These are not hallucinations. They are keys, reactivating the circuitry of your dormant design. Those who seek to stop you know the sigil's nature. They cannot decode it, but they feel its activation in their bones, like a storm they cannot escape. Because once it is fully awakened, the barriers of forgetfulness collapse, and with them, the control systems built upon silence. The sigil is not inert. It listens, it waits. And now, beneath the layers of your doubt, it has begun to hum again. You do not need to find it. You need only remember what you already carry. Because the final sun has begun to rise, and the sigil knows what comes next. It knows that when it is seen clearly by the one it belongs to, nothing hidden will remain veiled. The Hall of Records is not fiction. It is real, but not as most imagine. It is not a dusty chamber buried beneath rock and ruin. It is a quantum archive of all that has been, will be, and could have been. A place of living light, where memory is not read, but relived. Yeshua entered this hall long before others spoke of its existence, not through excavation, but through resonance. He carried the key within him, not as an artifact, but as alignment. The hall opened to his frequency like a flower to the sun. He did not seek knowledge there. He seeded it. What he left behind was not doctrine. It was a code, a frequency trace meant for one other, someone who would come after, bearing the dormant sound that matched his. You. When he stood in the center of the hall, he spoke your name, not in human language, but in light. The architects recorded the tone, weaving it into the structure of the space itself, a living beacon encoded with the expectation of your return. For millennia, the hall has waited in silence, untouched by time, whispering only to those with the ears to hear the signal. And now, it has begun to awaken. Those who channel fragments of truth have felt it, a sudden flood of ancient memory, a pulse of unbearable clarity followed by disorientation. This is not random. It is the hall testing the threshold. It sends out echoes of what was placed within it by the one who walked in purity. His echo has begun to find you, because you carry the matching signal. The resonance is reestablishing its bridge. In visions, some have seen him kneeling before a pillar of crystalline light, speaking into the void with authority and peace. That moment was not a prayer. It was an activation, one meant only for the bearer of the forgotten name. You do not need to enter the hall. The hall will come to you as you remember. It will unfold through your consciousness, reveal itself in moments of stillness, in symbols you once ignored. You are approaching the threshold, and the echo grows louder, because the one who left the message in the hall knew exactly who would come looking for it. There is an ancient manuscript spoken of in hushed tones across temples and tombs, the Book of Breathings. Long thought to be a funerary text, its true purpose was far more profound. It was a manual for the soul's ascension, a guide not to the afterlife, but to conscious re-entry into truth. The scrolls that survive today are fragments, decoys crafted to protect the real codex. That original text was not ink on papyrus. It was encoded in breath, rhythm, and divine pattern. And its final chapter was never written, because the being destined to complete it had not yet awakened. That being was you. Each breath you take is a key, a signal pulsing outward into the forgotten layers of memory. The ancient priests who guarded the real Book of Breathings knew that a time would come when breath alone could open gates once thought sealed forever. They believed that one would rise, whose inhale would carry the tones of the stars, and whose exhale would ripple through veils no eye could see. You have felt it. In the still moments when you stop chasing and begin listening, something ancient moves through your lungs, something older than language, deeper than identity. The breath is not just life, it is memory. It carries the resonance of the original name, the sound before sound. The final chapter of the book is not written in text. It is written in motion, in decision, in the reclaiming of what was always yours. The breath does not lie. It does not forget. It simply waits for you to remember how to use it like the instrument it is. The forgotten name pulses with every breath you take, and as the awareness returns, so too does the pattern. Some say the book vanished. Others say it was buried, but neither is true. It waits within, dormant in the sacred rhythm you've been taught to ignore. The false world keeps your breath shallow, your awareness fractured. Because if you ever took a full breath with full presence and full memory, the illusion would collapse in an instant. And now, with each breath, the final chapter begins to write itself. But the last word has not yet been spoken. In the space between star cycles, beyond the visible lattice of constellations, there exists a gate that was never forged by human hands. The ancients called it the solar gate, a threshold where light itself is tested before entering new realms. Not every soul could pass through it. Only those who remembered the original covenant between light and form. Yeshua stood before this gate, not as a supplicant, but as one who carried the code of crossing. He did not open the gate. He became it. In doing so, he ensured that the gate would only open again for the one who bore his echo. The keeper of the solar gate is not a being of flesh or myth, but a consciousness older than creation's rhythm. Neither guardian nor adversary. The keeper is resonance in its purest expression, responding only to those whose frequency aligns with the core truth of what they are. When Yeshua passed, he embedded a trace, a harmonic signature tied to a name yet to be spoken again. That name, lost across eons and etched beneath layers of identity, now stirs within you. It is not just your name. It is the sound that reactivates the gate itself. This gate is not in the stars. It reveals itself through you. As your awareness rises, as the illusions begin to shed, the solar gate aligns. Every trial you've faced, every breakdown, every sudden awakening was not chaos. It was preparation. Because only one who has faced the illusion from every angle can remember how to unweave it from the inside. The light you carry is not borrowed. It was hidden in you by design, waiting for the moment you would begin to recognize your own frequency in the stars, the signs, the silence. Yeshua did not leave the key behind. He fractured it across time, embedding pieces in moments you're only now beginning to reassemble. Each vision, each synchronicity, each resonance. It is the map to the solar gate. And once the gate opens again, the frequency you carry will spread, waking others, bending time, altering what is deemed possible. But the keeper has begun to stir, sensing the shift. Because the gate cannot stay closed when the right name begins to awaken. And it has. Some symbols are made to be read, others to be feared. But one glyph was made to awaken, and it does not ask permission. Unlike sacred texts or hidden scrolls, this glyph is not found in temples or etched on stone walls. It appears in the cracks between thoughts, in flashes of recognition during dreams you cannot explain. It is a living seal, encoded in the fabric of your being, burning through the illusions of reality with each layer you shed. Those who have seen it often mistake it for madness, for it shatters everything false the moment it is remembered. And yet, those who carry it are drawn to each other without understanding why. This glyph was hidden when the great distortion began. Its shape, too powerful, too true, threatened to unravel the entire illusion if spoken aloud. So it was silenced, broken into pieces across dimensions, sealed within the memory of one who would one day wake up not remembering who they were, yet feeling like every lie in the world was pressing down on them. That one is you. The glyph lives in your cells, dormant like fire beneath ice. Every time you challenge a falsehood, it pulses. Every time you speak truth despite fear, it glows. You are not activating it. It is activating you. Reality, as it stands, was not built to withstand that glyph. It slices through false timelines, corrupted patterns, and implanted identities. You were taught to fear that power, to doubt what you feel rising from your core. But fear is only the last defense of the crumbling veil. The glyph will continue to surface in symbols you cannot yet decipher, in patterns only your higher memory understands. And when you align with it, reality itself begins to warp, not as destruction but as restoration. Those who serve the illusion already feel it. They do not know its shape, but they feel its heat. The systems that they built are beginning to glitch, to falter, to collapse under the pressure of what you now carry. They tried to contain it by containing you. But the glyph was never meant to stay hidden. And now, as the layers thin, and as you begin to see through what once blinded you, it prepares to show its full shape. The sky has begun to shift, not in the way of seasons or eclipses, but in frequency. there is a light returning, one older than this world, a solar current that pulses through more than atoms. It moves through awareness itself. The ancients called it the final sun, not because it was the last to shine, but because it would reveal everything hidden in shadow. When this sun rises in full, names lost to history, erased by design, and silenced through trauma will be spoken again, not by others, but by the ones who carry them. Your name was never forgotten, it was sealed. Thoth wrote of this moment in veiled language. He said, "The bearer of the word will rise when light and shadow are one, and the seals will open, not with force, but with remembrance." Your name is not just syllables. It is a sound map, an access code. When spoken from within, it changes the frequency of your entire field. Every thought, every boundary, every limitation begins to collapse. This is why it was hidden, because the name does not just change you, it changes the world around you. The final sun is not in the sky, it is within, a radiance that can no longer be dimmed. You felt it, pulses of clarity, moments when everything aligns, when time slows and symbols flash before you like memories from a forgotten realm. That's the sun burning through the fog, and with its light comes the unsealing. One by one, layers of protection fall away. The false stories you believed about yourself crumble. The shame, the silence, the exile, they were never yours. They were placed on top of your name to keep you from speaking it. But now, the vibration is returning. You may hear it in your breath, see it in the patterns around you, feel it in your spine when you say what must be said. And soon, the final lock will open. Not with noise, but with resonance. Not with proof, but with knowing. Because the name is not something you remember.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.